Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Misty.
No problem.
I sort of backed into online fundraising personally back in 1999, believe it or not. I had at the time 3 grandparents who had died with Alzheimer's and had decided that it was time that people of a younger generation realized that it just wasn't an old person's disease. And so what I did in '99 was organize a very basic grassroots event with a bunch of friends called Sports Fest, which mobilized sort of late 20s, early 30s into a day where we raised a little money, but more importantly, raised awareness and started encouraging conversation around the disease. And so online fundraising back then for me was blasting out emails to the people I knew and asking them to do one of 3 things. It was, hey, come to the event and pay an entry fee, which will go to, and we ended up funding a very sort of complicated piece of hardware that goes into the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but come to the event, pay an entry fee, and your entry fee will go to that. If you can't pay an entry fee because if you can't make it, how about donating something for our silent auction? And if you can't do either of those things, why don't you send me a check, and I'll forward that check on your behalf to the institution we were supporting, and then we'll figure out at the end, how much money we raised. And it was a great success. In the first year, we raised $12,000. And in 2003, I'd been working at eBay for 3 years by then and said, hey, we should really start thinking about integrating an online auction as part of this sort of online fundraising process. And that might really be able to take us from the $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 amounts up to bigger numbers like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And that's what we did. And so we started again with a very simple online auction. I used email, lots of phone calls, begging and borrowing for items. And then 2004 hit and everything changed. By that time the event was fairly popular. We had a couple of hundred participants and I started testing this P2P fundraising idea. So how do I get the 200 participants who all in one form or another bought into the fact that we were doing something great for the Alzheimer population? How do I get them to be an evangelist or an advocate on my behalf? And then we took our fundraising from like 40 and 50,000 up to 100 and 150,000. And really, it was all because of the P2P fundraising. And I would get people who would pay $100 to participate in the event, who would go out and raise $4,000 or $5,000 just by virtue of sending emails to their friends and family who were supporting them as well as supporting the cause. And so Sports Fest had sort of run its course. We had set a goal when we started in 1999 of raising $1 million. And by 2009, we had raised $1.1 million. And really, through some pretty rudimentary and basic P2P fundraising, getting people excited about this cause. At that point in time, I sort of said Sports Fest was done, but I really wanted to keep on the Alzheimer's theme. And at that point in time, it became really interesting to me that Twitter was this amazing real-time communication platform that nobody was really using as the platform for fundraising. They were using it to communicate what they were doing off of Twitter, but nobody was using the power and the scale and the scope and the free nature of Twitter to use it in and of itself to raise some money and some awareness. So in late 2008, actually, I started hatching this idea called 1,000,000 Tweets to Remember, which was, how do I use Twitter to get people to memorialize their loved ones who either were suffering from or who had died from Alzheimer's? And if I could do it on Twitter, I knew not only would I be able to do it for a very low cost, but more importantly, I'd be talking to a very technologically savvy younger generation, the demo that I really wanted to get the word out to, that Alzheimer's is something we need to start thinking about when we're young, as opposed to when it's too late and we're old. And so that's really how I conceived of 1,000,000 Tweets to Remember. It took about 9 months to get it from my head onto a piece of paper and then ultimately to a site. And really what it was an attempt in connection with the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, as well as a terrific geriatric research institution in Toronto called Baycrest. It was an opportunity to raise their profile amongst a demographic that they really hadn't talked to before, raise a little bit of money, but more than anything else, to really start the conversation happening on the social web around what this disease is, what are the types of things we can do to prevent it, and then how do we memorialize and honor those who are our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and uncles who have suffered from it in a very unique and interesting way. And I actually thought, out of the whole thing, the most profound thing was trying to memorialize somebody you really loved in 140 characters or less, which really was the beauty, one of the beauties of doing this on Twitter. So this just gives you a sort of a quick snapshot of what it is I, as well as some other very dedicated people, designed. And what we tried to do was we tried to take full advantage of the social web. And so we created videos where scientists talked about things that were happening in the Alzheimer's research community. I had my mom and my aunt talk about what it was like to have a parent with Alzheimer's. I talked about what I did behind, why 1 million tweets came to be, and some of the things we were hoping to accomplish. And it was the video in and of itself, and the series of videos on YouTube were seen by, I think now it's something like 15,000 people. And so really, if you look at this, if you had a Twitter handle, you had the opportunity to come onto 1 million tweets and memorialize your loved one, and that memorial would waterfall underneath that little heading there called Tweets for Alzheimer's. And we also provided an opportunity for some people to do something called a shrine, which was, if you not only wanted to memorialize them in 140 characters or less, but actually wanted to create a shrine which allowed you to upload photos and videos and text describing what was going on, we allowed you to do that as well. We launched it on World